Sometimes it's not about doing more or getting the right strategy or having the right plan, but it's simply recognizing the importance of your business energetics, how you have the capacity to receive that next level impact and income. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs. It is Melanie Benson here, your host of Amplify Your Success podcast, and you're tuning into a very special series I'm doing about the 3 M's, the monetization, the messaging, and the mindset around next level success. And today, I want to talk about something. I haven't been talking about this a lot because, quite honestly, I sometimes just don't even know how to communicate what I've discovered in this area. And I have found it to be a very powerful element or ingredient in our success. And it's recognizing that sometimes we have to expand our capacity to receive as business owners, especially if we are more conscious and impact driven, heartfelt, soulful in our work, whatever you want to refer to yourself as. We tend to take on a lot. We tend to give a lot. And we oftentimes are driven to bring our work out in the world because we've had a healing or a trauma that we've learned something and we want to give that back to the world, right? Like, okay, if you're recognizing that, give me a little shout out, let me know. Yep, Melanie, that's me. I get that. And having done this for so long, I personally have bumped into places where it's like, I know what to do. I know even how to do it, but I wasn't. And I've started to witness this in a lot of my clients over the years. And that revelation was that sometimes it's not about doing more out here and that, in the outer realm, it's not about more strategy, the right tactics, all of that. It's about, we don't have the energy, we don't have the capacity to do more. We don't have the belief that we can hold that next level of success, whether that's conscious or unconscious. And oftentimes it's unconscious. And so what happens is we tend to hold back. We create a paradigm where more is not possible. And we've bought into that and believe that so deeply because it's just simply our energy body isn't able to receive more. And so I want to consider today's session an exploration around what it looks like when your energy body, when your capacity cannot receive more for several reasons, and a little bit of a tool to expand your capacity and start to really tune into what does your energy body needs so that you can receive more. And by the way, energy bodies, I'll explain the bodies in a minute, but it's something that whether you believe in, the consciousness side of things or you just don't, that's fine. But these are, there's science that says that we have these different bodies that we operate from. So let's first talk about the signs that you need to expand your capacity so that you can move to a new level of success. And one thing that I read many years ago when I was going through a really deep stuck spot was the work of Gay Hendricks, is called The Big Leap. And he talks a lot about this idea that there is a capacity to what we believe we can achieve. And we tend to hit this thermometer level of what we are programmed for. And once we hit that level, we tend to self-sabotage. And I think that is one of the things that happens when you kind of hit the level of your capacity is you will self-sabotage. And possibly what you notice is you feel called to do something more, something bolder, something bigger. And it's like you cannot not do it. Yet you have this pervasive fear or worry or concern or something that's got you perpetually in pause, and you just can't move it forward. I know some people, they're all in on the idea, but they just keep getting stuck in how am I going to do this? And because they can't see how, the vision, the idea just is paralyzed. For other people, one of the signs I see that the energy body's not ready is your energy is really super low. And it may be because you've been taking care of everybody else or some of the other things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And you literally cannot imagine doing more or taking on more. You're like, I'm at my limit. There's nothing more that I can accept right now. That is a huge sign that your capacity is limited. And again, that may just be exactly what you need to do right now, is honor that. And I think the important thing is to know you don't have to live there forever. Like, there is another piece of this. Another sign that comes up for people who are hitting these limits is you're experiencing a lot of inner turmoil or conflict about moving forward. And perhaps you're worried you're going to lose something important to you, or especially time or energy. You may actually be experiencing some imposter syndrome. It's like, okay, like, I don't think I'm good enough, or I don't feel like there is a version of me that can do this thing that I'm imagining. I just want you to know that that's not the truth. That just may be your truth right now. And you may worry or believe full-heartedly that you are not ready for that next level. And yes, that may be true right now, but it doesn't have to stay true. And last, and this one's so big right now, you may have had something that felt more aligned to this vision. You may have had success in the past and lost it. You may have done some blunders in your business that sent you backwards. And you may be experiencing some self-judgment or loathing. You may be grieving the business that you had. I certainly have gone through that. And you may feel some apathy. There's a lot of people that are so apathetic about the business they built. They're like, I cannot do this anymore. You've lost joy for the work you've done. And it's possible that it's time to evolve the work you're doing. And it's also possible that your capacity has been limited or shrunk because of the dynamic you've had with your business and your work. So here's some things that I've learned in the last decade. And I think I've known pieces of this since I started doing consciousness work in the early 90s, the mid 90s. But what I've come to realize is all of us, every human being, has an energetic ceiling, if you will, a thermometer setting for what we believe we can do and what we are capable of doing right now. And that energetic limit, if you will, is oftentimes set by beliefs, ideas, and or trauma that has imprinted your physical body with a limit. Because what I've come to understand is that there are these different bodies that we all have: a mental body, an emotional body, and an energy body. There's others that some people wrap into that as well, but the ones I like to work with are those three. And what happens is when we have unresolved trauma or these complex micro traumas, they don't have to be the big T, as it's referred to, something horrible like abuse or abandonment at a very abusive level. But it may just be these chronic micro traumas where you've disrespected your own needs. You've had this reinforcement of a limiting belief of something that you took on, and you're hearing that from the world around you. And you've got these self-sabotaging behaviors that are setting up this repeated experience of it. And what happens is with these micro traumas or big traumas that are unresolved and unhealed, is they tend to manifest as chronic health issues, depressions, anxieties. Even if you know what the traumas are and you've done mental work around it and you've done mindset belief around it, and trust me, I am deeply trained in mindset work around trauma and limiting beliefs and fears and all that, but sometimes it lands in the body, and the body creates this mechanism to keep you safe. And these three bodies tend to wrap you in this cloak of comfort and safety so that you don't get hurt again. Because there is a part of us, like on a very subconscious, unconscious level, that wants to keep us safe. So if you are feeling limited in what you can imagine or what you're willing to take on, it's possible. Now, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a counselor in that way. I work in the consciousness level, but it is possible that you may be having some stuck energy in one of the bodies, the mental body, where our thoughts and our ideas and our visions take place, right? Mental body is mindset. This is where we oftentimes turn to our mind to work things out, but our mind is only one part of the full set of what's required to embody next level success. The second is the emotional body. And those are the feelings we have about those thoughts, beliefs, ideas, right? And so the emotional body is where things get really interesting, because emotionally, when we have an idea, we will oftentimes have a feeling state that emerges. So my early work around mindset, I talked a lot about, hey, your thoughts and your thinking is driving emotions in your body. And that is where you may be getting stuck. Fear, limitation, conflict, all of that creates an emotion. Those emotions are in the body. And when you repeatedly have those emotions over and over and over again, guess what? They then shift your energy. Your energy body is what is like the connection between the emotions and the physical body and how we feel about it. Okay. And what happens energetically as a relationship to those emotions. So here's where things get really interesting. And I want to bring in a couple of elements that I've spent a lot of time being with in these last 14 years as I've done some deep healing work around some unresolved trauma, some of which I didn't even know existed. Some of it I had an idea about, but I didn't have the awareness how deeply it was impacting me. Our nervous system plays a huge role in how these three body systems talk to each other and they're interwoven. And our nervous system, which is where stress, anxiety, depression, oftentimes that's in our nervous system. And our nervous system is constantly reacting to the belief or the feeling of being scared, or a trauma that's being relived in your body, or PTSD that maybe you don't even know what it is, but your nervous system's taking over, and it's got this automatic flare up of how it responds to a perceived threat. And the perceived threat can be very benign to someone else, but it's very big to you. And if that doesn't become aware to you, and you don't create ways to navigate, a lot of people call it somatic work, or it could be other types of physical ways to move through those reactions, then your nervous system is going to constantly be in fight or flight, or freeze for that matter. And when that shows up in how you run your business, guess what? You're going to feel unsafe a lot, and your subconscious mind is going to be constantly perceiving these threats and these potential issues. Your energy shrinks. And this is where I got stuck. Over a decade ago, more like 14 years ago, I got really stuck in that energy. And what I didn't understand was I had this deeply triggered trauma. And there was some things that happened in my inner circle with the group that, were supporting me at that time. And all of a sudden, everything kind of like went into freeze mode for me. And it took me a really long time to get out of that freeze mode. And it was this work of recognizing my energy body, my capacity had shrunk. Okay. So you can be a very high functioning, highly anxious person that this occurs to. And sometimes it's just simply you've got that freeze mode. You're in paralysis all the time. Whatever your experience is, maybe there's something here for you. Now, one of the tools that I now use in my work with my clients is the work of Dr. David Hawkins in the book Power versus Force. He calls it the map of consciousness. It's such interesting work. It's a very dense read. I'll just say his work is very scientific. And yet the way in which he talks about the map of consciousness is so powerful that I find that there is something in here for us to use as a tool if we're ready to start expanding our capacity for more. Okay, there's several layers to this. There's somatic work, there's body work, there's mindset work, but I like to have a tool that's really super simple to start the conversation around. So the work of the map of consciousness is, and by the way, there's many layers to this. I'm going to cover a very simple version of this, is in essence that there are thoughts and feelings that have a range of vibrational attunement that go with it. So very low vibration energies are around guilt and shame, apathy and grief. Those feelings, which are human feelings, right? We will all feel them at some time, but they are very low vibrationally. And then there are higher vibration energies like joy and peace and love. And when we are in those vibrations, it's a very high vibrational state. Now, here's why this is so important. Okay, I'm again hitting the high notes here, and if this is speaking to you, I highly recommend you get the book, either The Map of Consciousness or Power versus Force. Is most of us are trying to power through life, power through the guilt, power through unresolved shame, like put the grief aside and just get back to work, right? And we're still in those low vibrational states trying to create, trying to access the more in flow states, which are in the higher vibrational levels. Now, this is why it gets so convoluted for people who are trying to do law of attraction work. They're in these low vibrations and they're trying to create prosperity, create a new program, create the messaging that acts like a lighthouse that pulls them in. And what I've come to understand is when you are operating in those very low vibrational states, it's very difficult to create something that has a more expansive vibration to it. At the very simplest, at the very most simple, basic level, when we want to create something and tap into something that has the ability to impact the lives of millions, which is what my $1 Million Visibility is all about. We want to create something that can change lives. We cannot do it when we are in guilt, shame, apathy, grief, fear. Any of those are lower vibrational, and what we create from that state has an energetic cord to the work that we create around it. So what do you do if you're in these trauma states, or you have this unresolved guilt, shame, apathy, grief, any of those lower level energies? Well, this is a deeper, more personalized piece of the work. But what I have been doing and what I am working with my clients around who are experiencing this stuckness is we need to learn how to move up the energetic vibrational scale. So even anger and frustration has more of a positive energy to it than those guilt, shame, apathy, grief energies. And sometimes, and this is David Hawkins' work, is about just find the next most resourceful state. So if you start to get connected to the chart, you recognize, okay, so if I'm feeling guilty about something, or I'm beating myself up, or I'm experiencing a shame moment, I'm not going to try and create from that state. What I am going to do is do some gentle work around, okay, what's a more resourceful way I can be right now? If I let go of guilt, shame, self-judgment, apathy, grief, or I just allow that to not guide my decision making, and I just move to like, hey, I'm freaking angry today, or how can I neutralize this and say, okay, that happened, and what do I need to be willing to do now? Right? Like we can work with that, and we're not trying to bypass it, but recognize that, okay, yes, it happened. Acknowledge, maybe appreciate some of the learnings and who you became because of it. Right. And this is where in the NLP world, we use timeline therapy to access the learnings in those states and release the negative vibration of it and move into a more resourceful state and then create from that place. So that's one possibility. Now, I'm not talking about bypassing things that are massively traumatic and locked in your body. I highly recommend therapy, a trauma specialist. I very much believe that we can use tools like EMDR, internal family systems, IFS, as it's oftentimes repeated. There's some plant medicine rituals that are very supportive, or microdosing, as it's often called. And again, you need to work with a trained licensed therapist in these areas. And if you're dealing with kind of the aftermath, you've done the big work and it's still holding you back, this may be where we need to do the work now. How can you shift the energy body? How can you claim a more resourceful mental state, go into the mind body and activate what you do want, create a physical feeling state, an emotional state that supports the energetic vibration of what you want. And then guess what? Our energy body starts to expand. Okay, so this is the deep inner work that I've been doing a lot with, and I find it very helpful, but it does need to be in partnership with other things because sometimes your capacity is limited because you haven't been asking for help. You are trying to do things by yourself. You don't have a coach, you don't have a mastermind, you don't have a team. Okay, so your expansion of capacity may simply be I need to ask for help. I need to invest in help. That might be where you're at. You may be in the state where you're out of alignment with your most natural and true self. And this is where the human design piece comes in. Really get to understand your human design. Are you, how do you operate in your most natural state? How can you get more congruent with that? That expands your capacity by honoring your true self. And sometimes it's about being willing to surround yourself with people who have a healthy life, who are conscious leaders and influencers. And it's not the version of what you see out there on social media, but you're surrounding yourself with what's possible. If you're like me, when I see what's possible, it becomes more realistic for me. And then the choice is, who do I need to be and what do I need to be willing to do differently to match that or expand that or be my own version of that, right? So this is a lot of recognizing where are things stuck in the mental body, the emotional body, the energy body. What does what would happen that's positive? What would need to be in place for my energy body to expand? Do I need to shift my mindset? Do I need to shift my emotions? Do I need to shift my energetic capacity and have things in place that allow me to expand my capacity for good? So I know this is covering something that I don't talk a lot about, and I'm very curious how you relate to it. Are you seeing yourself in some of this? Is these kind of tools and this information helpful? And what are you willing to do to increase your capacity? I'd love to hear from you wherever you're listening to today. And by the way, I highly recommend that book I mentioned earlier, Power versus Force, or The Map of Consciousness from David Hawkins. And if you just want the chart, I have a chart that I created for my clients, and I'm happy to share access with you. Just type in the comments, increase capacity, or DM me on your favorite social media. So come follow me and then DM me on your favorite social platform and type increase capacity in the comments. And I'll reach out to you via the DMs and we'll, get you the chart somehow. And I just find having the chart, I literally have it hang on my wall. And it reminds me when I'm feeling low and I'm feeling not very resourceful, what do I need to shift into? And what is the mental thought, the emotional state, and the energetic thing I need so that I can be more expansive today? So I can allow myself to be at that next level. What do I need to believe so that more joy can be accessed? And what do I need to be willing to do so that I can grow the reach of my work in the world? So give yourself permission to be seen. Give yourself permission to strengthen your capacity to receive. Be willing. You may need to expand your paradigm of what's possible. You may need to be willing to be seen as a recognized authority. All this is possible, but you do have to decide. Do the work and don't feel like you have to figure it out on your own. Find someone that you feel tuned into that allow and will, or I should say, allow someone to hold space for you and with you and shine a light into those blind spots so you can really grow the reach of your work in the world.